So first, when we talk about catastrophic risk or existential risk, what do we mean? What do these risks look like? I think there are two kinds of risks, broadly speaking. One is bad actors, right? So the AI doesn't have to itself do damage, but think about ChatGPT 7 or ChatGPT 8. We will have someday this amazing technology that can answer any question that the best human could answer, and maybe even better than the best human. Well, what if some bad actor gets a hold of this technology? After all, it's available on the internet for $20 a month, and asks it, design a new virus that's extremely lethal, way more lethal than COVID or smallpox, and takes 3 weeks to display symptoms. And, oh, give me the cure, but don't share the cure with anyone else. And, you release this virus, right? So nuclear weapons were manageable because we kind of had two groups of people that needed to be monitored, and we had third-party verification, we had other things. We barely got away with that. Well, what if you give a red button to 8 billion people? Are we sure none of the 8 billion people press the red button? That seems risky. So that's the first class of risk that I think is absolutely something we need to be worried about, and people are worried about this. The second class of risk is more speculative, but I also think is something very important to worry about, and this falls in the category of alien intelligence. So as an analogy, suppose we found out this afternoon that there's a spaceship near Pluto on its way to Earth. How would we feel? We'd be pretty excited. I think that would be amazing. But then on second thought, I would say, wow, maybe that there's a chance, that 10% chance that doesn't end well for us. Right? After all, whenever sort of people more advanced encounter people much less advanced or species less advanced, it often doesn't end well on Earth. Maybe it wouldn't end well here. Well, according to this view, AI is an alien form of intelligence, right? We don't know what its goals are. We try to shape it, but maybe, and so there's a computer scientist at Berkeley, Stuart Russell, who's he's the co-author of one of the best-selling books for PhD machine learning classes. Very serious computer scientist. I was on a panel with him, and he had a quote that I really like. I thought it put this into a nice way of thinking about it. He said, how do we have power over entities more powerful than us forever? I'm not sure there's a good answer to that question, but it's definitely a question worth thinking about. So in these two research papers, I think about these questions. The first one is kind of a thought experiment that I think about as the Oppenheimer question. You remember in the Oppenheimer movie, before they test the first atomic bomb, the physicists say, hey, what if this chain reaction ignites the atmosphere and kills us all? And they say, okay, hold on, let's go back and do some calculations. They go to their whiteboard, they come back and they say, good news, the chance of that's really small. It's like, well, okay, but how small is really small? Well, that's the question I ask in this paper. So suppose AI is amazing. Suppose it raises growth rates from 2% per year, the last 150 years, to 10% per year, right? Suppose AI is amazing, but there's a one-time chance that when you use the AI, it kills everyone on Earth. What chance are you willing to take? And this is, I should have prefaced all my remarks by saying, I'm an economist and we like to consider simple models, toy models, to speculate on how we understand things. This is definitely in that category, right? So it's a toy model. What chance are you willing to take to get 10% growth? A 1% chance of killing everyone, a 10% chance? Well, I can ask our models, the kind of models we use to study business cycles and asset pricing and labor markets, what do the models say? And it turns out you learn interesting things from that. So the first thing you learn is that if you take log utility, our standard utility function in lots of economics, that there's lots of diminishing returns, right? Utility from income diminishes. The first $1,000 really valuable, the last $1,000 much less so. So log utility is just a functional form there that we often use. It turns out, with that standard model, you're willing to take a 1 in 3 chance of killing everyone on Earth to get 10% growth. And that taught me, wow, I'm not log utility at all, because there's no way I would take a 1 in 3 chance. So it surprises me that our standard model would say something like that. It's not exactly our standard model. We have other models where we say, suppose risk aversion, suppose the curvature is even a little bit higher. So log utility is curvature of 1. You could have curvature of 2 or 3. Turns out the answer is very nonlinear in that. If I make the curvature 2, risk aversion is 2, then that 33% plummets to 2%. At risk aversion 3, it plummets to 0.5%. So it's just, 1, 2, and 3 are not nearly as close as we thought they were in this space. And why is this? Well, it's for a very intuitive reason. There's sharply diminishing returns to income or consumption, right? And so I don't need a 4th flat screen TV or a 3rd iPhone. I need more days of life to enjoy living in the Bay Area, right? My life in the Bay Area is great. Just don't kill me. I don't need another iPhone. Just don't kill me. Right? And that's kind of what the model says. Okay, so risk aversion 2 or 3 looks good. But then I thought more about it and I realized, look, the same world where we get 10% growth in GDP is probably a world where the AI is going to invent amazing medical progress, right? Cures for cancer, cures for heart disease. Suppose along with that 10% growth, it cuts mortality rates in half. It lets us have life expectancy twice as long as we have today. Now again, that's very speculative, but 10% growth was pretty speculative too. Well, it turns out, even with that risk aversion parameter of 3, now you're willing to take a 1 in 4 chance of killing everyone to get the halving of mortality. And if you think about it, you could sort of see why. Well, now we're not comparing lives versus consumption. I said lives versus consumption, we pick lives every time. Right? Now we're comparing lives versus lives. I don't care what kills me, I care about not dying. Right? So if the AI can cut my mortality rate in half, reduce cancer, heart disease, et cetera, well, I'm willing to take more of the existential type risk, and so is everyone else, at least if we're all identical. Right? And so this surprised me. I thought, no, I was a 0.5% person maybe before, and now even my preferences say maybe I should be a 25% chance. So that was surprising. Okay. Next point, of course, we don't want to take this risk if we don't have to, right? So the second project I worked on is about AI safety. How much should we be investing to mitigate these risks, right? We'd like to get that 25 as low as possible. And are we massively underinvesting? That was the question I asked myself. Again, kind of after seeing this O1 Pro. O1 Pro made me realize, wait, this is changing a lot faster than I thought. So, how much should we invest to mitigate these risks, and are we underinvesting? Well, it turns out we've experienced something quite analogous to the AI risk just recently, and that was COVID-19. During the COVID pandemic, we as a society faced a probability of dying of 0.3%, less than 1%. 0.3% of people died in the COVID pandemic. Kind of small, but remember, we stopped going out for 1.5 years. We shut down the economy for a while. We spent 4% of GDP mitigating that risk to avoid dying. Okay? I suspect the probability of a bad outcome from AI is bigger than 0.3%, but we're not spending anything like 4% of GDP to mitigate that risk, so maybe we're underinvesting.